And welcome to Mountain Bears. I'm Aeson Knight, and of course with me tonight is Techy Joe. How are you, darling?
I'm doing well. How are you this evening?
Oh, my dear gods. We normally cover our show, the lighter topic at the beginning. Around the middle of the show, we get to the big topic. And then at the end, we may get a little hot topic-y or controversially on Mountain Bears.
Mm-hmm.
And it is sad that we have a 7.1 earthquake that is affecting multiple countries. We've got, you know,
Well,
Greece.
primarily Turkey and Greece.
Right.
But aftershocks, what is far away? Help me again. I cannot keep on track of that one. I know that it was a shallow earthquake, so it did a lot of building damage.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember. It was kind of shocking how far away it has been felt.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. The U.S. Geological Survey measured it at 7. Turkish authorities have 6.6.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was 1:51 this afternoon or 7:51 our time.
Right.
But yeah, so
With 196 aftershocks.
right. And that's why I don't know how far away. It was several countries have reported the aftershocks.
So basically,
sorry, bad story. Pardon?
So basically, everywhere in that hemisphere, because it was the Aegean Sea, which is mainly between Turkey and Greece, but it also is hitting Europe. It is being felt in northern Africa. It is all over the place.
Absolutely. And those aftershocks are up to a magnitude 4, I believe. Right. And then they're also facing tsunamis and mini tsunamis.
Right.
That are causing widespread flooding. Like there was one part of the story talking about like 100-year-old building that has fish swimming in it.
Yeah.
That would normally not be underwater.
No, it normally wouldn't have fish in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that too, but
Yeah, but we've got 1,000 a year. This is a branch of major history hit again with a very large earthquake. And we're going to see an echo of this. We always see an echo within 2 to 3 weeks. Mother Earth moves another part of her dress and we see it somewhere else. So I'm very watchful of if it hitting Greece and Turkey, to flip it over to the other side. We may see something hit in India. We may see something hitting the volcanic ring of fire within about 2 weeks. Or even hitting us.
Well, there is always that possibility. That is a kind of a scary thing for a lot of people, or more importantly, it's scary that a lot of people don't realize this. We have mountains because tectonic plates slammed into each other. That also means we have fault lines, and those fault lines are viable conduits for volcanic eruption, as well as further earthquakes. So, the Appalachian Mountains, while not an active volcanic range or an active earthquake area, doesn't mean that it's can't happen.
Right.
So when we do start seeing earthquakes and volcanic activity around the world in places that we haven't seen that in a while, it is very concerning.
Right.
And should be very concerning for everyone. That this could also, set off a few other chain reactions.
Exactly. And it's literally like, just if you remember back when we were in elementary school, we had those towel plates and you had to move one and then you had to move the others to keep them in a square, and it changed the design. That's the same thing that happens with the Earth. We had a 3.1 almost 3 years ago, and we've had a lot of bridge repair going on.
Here
in West Virginia.
Well, and then with that, we've also had a lot of landslides.
Yeah.
Because if you look in the last few years, certain parts of the state, some otherwise maybe not the best roads to start with, some of the more rural roads that are in, you know, more mountainous parts of the state, there's been a lot of landslides, and that's not all just erosion. A lot of that can also be caused, or at least partially, you know, fed into with, that kind of geological activity.
Right. And, well, and if I believe, now someone can come in and correct me in the comments later, I believe we had our earthquake after the massive earthquake in Italy.
Oh, now that I don't remember.
Yeah.
That I don't remember. But on this happy note of, and I say that sarcastically, I do want to, however, say hello to Shannon and Brenda and thank them for joining us this evening.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone else watching later, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
But yeah, sorry, I don't know if you have comments up. I was seeing them come in, and I'm like,
I have one, but I'm flipping multiple screens at the same time.
Yes.
But, be careful, guys. Some of this stuff is just utterly unrealistic. We're seeing changes in our Earth that haven't been seen ever.
Well, or haven't occurred in so long.
Right.
That no, there's a very large possibility no human alive has ever seen this.
Right.
I mean, especially when you start getting into fossil records and you start seeing that parts of, what we now build homes on used to be underwater. And we're not just talking coastal areas.
No, one of the largest dry oceans is actually where the Great Pyramids is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, like 2020 needed one more thing.
Well, we've got the major blue moon coming tomorrow. We've got major things happening over the next 3 days. It's going to be fun, y'all. It's going to be real fun.
Well, and I do have a question, because we are going into, Halloween, full moon, time change, etc. And there's been that whole Facebook thing going around, and I'm sure anyone on Facebook has seen it by now. And I was curious on your thoughts of that. Is this like the reset to factory settings after Sunday? Like, are we going to get back to normal, or is this just...
Well, I'm really debating on normal, the word normal, because normal I don't think we'll see again. I do feel that we're going to be coming out of that shift because, Friday the 13th, full moon in March, and then we had all these planets going retrograde occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Coming into November, we're going through a period of not so many retrogrades, not so many, we're going back to some major planet directions. Time is changing, which it's already being felt. And then, of course, we have a blue moon. During All Hallows Eve, when the veil is the thinnest, I'm not sure what we're going to get. It's either going to be things start getting a lot better, or things start getting a lot worse to get us through this Pluto, Saturn, Uranus, Jupiter conjunction that's been sitting there for about since probably late November of 2019.
Okay, so when you say things are getting a lot worse as a possibility, are you talking about more like ripping off the Band-Aid and it's like, let's just go ahead and like, this is going to get as bad as it can get real quick and then it's done? Or are you talking about like, fasten your seatbelts? This isn't Kansas anymore, Dorothy. This is going to be worse.
Correct. This could be very much worse.
Okay.
And it's kind of like me and you were talking earlier today, and I'm like, do we have enough gloves? Because you work with a lot of stuff in your tech stuff, and we have to have gloves for it. Mm-hmm. Because they're already calling for a glove shortage. And, the only company in the United States that produces gloves in February was contacted by the Chinese national government, and they bought every pair, including defective pairs, of gloves this factory had. And they replaced another order in June.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it is a very big part of it. And, you know, my personal preference has always been to, once I get systems home, work with them gloved. Just because, like, I'm sorry, like, anyone watching this that's a client, I just find people nasty. And that comes from working in a call center with, like, 100 and some people and finding out what goes on under employee desks. Everything from, having staples in my knee to, fingernail and toenail clippings to who stepped in dog poop that morning. Because you just kind of, unfortunately,
well, and something
that's where the tower is. That's where you have to go to plug it up and unplug it.
Right. But, the computer cases are like everything else. It needs cleaned. And
well,
people don't do that.
More importantly than the computer case are your screens, keyboards, and mice. Like the case can be bad enough, and enough things can happen to the case to make it kind of but laptops, and especially desktop keyboard, screen, and mouse, I'm sometimes surprised what comes in.
Right.
It's like, how did you use this?
Well, what did you do with it?
And I've had that moment. I've had that moment where I'm just sitting there like, how could you even use this?
Right.
Like, how could you stomach touching that? Or how could you see to read through it?
Right. But, they're even recommending to begin holiday meal shopping 2 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a lot to consider. I mean, that basically means, like, next week, get started for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But then again, is this year going to really, like, is anyone seriously out there, and I'd love to see in the comments, is anyone actually planning, like, holiday get-togethers at this point? Like, have we all just accepted 2020 was the year that we all stayed home? I mean, as in, like, outside your, like, immediate household family. Like, you're going to do, like, a turkey breast. You're going to do, so a few things, and just kind of, it's a quiet holiday. We're going to watch the parade, we hope, or at least a replay of the parade. And that's it. Like,
well, that's something majorly to consider. But you also have a lot of people that are first-time Thanksgiving cooking because they're used to the mega meals where they just make potato soup, or they just make this, or they just make that. If they're all at home cooking, they're all going to try to pull off the holiday dinner and have the mega leftovers.
No, if you need someone to tell you to stop right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're watching this and you're thinking, yeah, that's what I'm going to do, stop right there. Just stop right there. Because the cold, hard reality is your family will deal better with a frozen turkey dinner being microwaved than the hell, havoc, and chaos of Mom's Breakdown Thanksgiving 2020. Everyone will deal better with a frozen dinner. Like, just buy a nice dessert. Like, that's it. Like, frozen TV dinners and a nice dessert. Call it a day. Enjoy time with your family. The food doesn't matter. Like, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
So Brenda has heard of people still planning on family get-togethers for Thanksgiving dinner. I'm hoping those are small and local. Like, and I understand the struggle. It's been a bad year, and everyone wants to just, like, can we have some normal? And I get it. I do get it. I really do. And hello, Mika.
Hi, Mika. And, hopefully people do this smartly. But and they're actually seeing them and we're guilty of this, and I've started doing it. Of course, I've started doing it with Amazon. Is people stocking up?
Oh yeah, so Brenda's like, no, not small and local.
Right.
Like this is the great big massive multi-state destination Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, this year I'm kind of in a hinch and I'm kind of in a pinch myself because our Thanksgiving plan has been closed.
Well, effectively, yeah. Like I mean, there's it really isn't the year to be going out. It is not the year to be like planning the big dinner. Like I could almost understand if like you're gonna bring mom over, like you're all gonna be really careful for 2 weeks, and you're gonna bring mom over, or grandma, or and like one day, few hours, you're gonna like try to be careful and not be crazy about it, but make sure that your people who are typically alone on the holidays but not foregoing somewhere are taken care of, and you're keeping it small and local. Like I can understand that.
Right.
Like it's a risk, and that's sort of like the conversation around school sports is it's a risk.
Right.
Like there's no denying that. Like it would be better if we canceled sports. Absolutely. It would be safer. However, at this point, I think everyone's looking at it as like a measured risk. It's a risk, but it's also an opportunity for some normalcy.
Right.
It is an opportunity to still be engaged, and active and do something.
Right. Well, our Thanksgiving plan has been Ryan's. Ryan's is closed, and I'm thinking.
Actually, you're thinking Golden Corral.
Golden Corral, Ryan's, same company. It just depends on what sticker they stick on your receipt.
Well, there's that, but no. Or we've also done IHOP. That was 1 year.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's not the year to go sit down in a restaurant, especially not crowded. Like we saw this crap back at Mother's Day.
Yes.
And that's what I'm afraid is about to happen again. Is that restaurants are going to see the opportunity. And instead of being carry out only, they're going to open that dining room. They're going to open the dining room, and it's like, guys, not right now. Please don't do this.
And turkey is easy to cook.
Well, it's still, if nothing else, TV dinner.
Yeah.
Like everyone will give you a break for 2020. Like, could we all just agree on that? Is like 2020 is the year we don't talk about how crap the meal was. Like we just no one say a word. Whatever you are putting in your mouth, it is okay. There will be better years. Everyone take a deep breath. You are not like, this is not the year to go out and be like super mom, super dad, super brother, super whatever. And do the great big family like feast. Like, especially again, if you have never done this before, because one, it's a challenge, and it is not something you pull off on the holiday. Like it takes a lot of effort and a lot of planning, and it will wear you out.
Right. It will. And the other side of that is get our newsletter, because there'll be some no waste Thanksgiving recipes in there. Like my turkey and stuffing casserole, and I'm going to also put in there my farmer shepherd pie. That's a different take on the shepherd's pie. Because if you're doing small dinners, and when I say small, I'm saying 5 people or less, or 6 people or less, you're going to have leftovers. And by the time you get through, if you do traditional dinners, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, you don't want to see turkey the day after.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Well, and typically it's also part of the effort.
Right.
Like that's realistically a thing to consider, is that like the cooking will not stop. Like you buy the turkey, you cook the fucker, and I'm gonna call it that. You cook the fucker. There's leftovers, and then you either have to figure out something to do with them, or you gotta chunk them. And it can become one of the biggest food waste holidays. Well, both can. Thanksgiving, and Christmas both can be massive food waste holidays. And with this many people trying to pull this off all at once, that could potentially turn into a tremendous food waste.
Right.
Because
grab
again,
pans while you're going through your baking aisle. You can easily fix dinner for the next 3 months. And in the freezer it goes.
Yeah, just wait a couple of weeks, and when you're like, I wouldn't mind some turkey. And you can pull it out, pop it in the oven, and you're done.
Yep.
Like, again, like if you're gonna do it, pre-think it, because you're gonna have leftovers. That's just a given. It's gonna happen.
Right.
But also try to think about what you really have to have on that table. Because I've seen that happen too, is some people have their favorite holiday thing. And, it's just not Thanksgiving without the green beans, or it's not Thanksgiving without, this or that or this other thing. And it's easy to get really bogged down and suddenly load that table down with a ton of food, because a lot of these recipes are meant to feed like 20 people. And if you're sitting there with a family of 4 or 5 or, whatever, there's going to be tons of leftover.
Right.
Like, and when I say feeds 20, I mean, like, there's still leftovers in that, because everyone's trying to figure out where to cram this, that, and everything else onto a plate. Sometimes you just have a, Thanksgiving Chinese, or, order a Christmas pizza. It's okay. Like, single people have been doing this shit for years.
Right.
I just want to say, I will join that club and say that during my single years, I had no problem going out and ordering Chinese, or picking up my Chinese, or ordering a pizza. Like, it's okay. It'll be okay. Like, there are other things you can do that day to make it special. Sometimes, like, it's just getting candy canes, or hot chocolate, or something stupid.
Right.
But again, if you're going to end up cooking both meals, try to, like, balance it. Like, see if you can make some trade-offs. Like, okay, I know it's not going to be Thanksgiving unless we have all these things, and it's not going to be Christmas unless we have all these things. But can we try to, like, divide and conquer? Like, everyone's happy place gets scratched across 2 holidays, so that I'm not doing everything for both.
Right. And by the way, we're probably going to film our Thanksgiving cooking, just for the hell of it.
There we go.
And I'm debating on, do I want turkey or do I want chicken?
Also an option. Or hell, I a few years ago ended up doing a Thanksgiving lasagna, or a marapi, technically, is the combined holiday, because I wasn't sure we were going to have enough meat. Like, we had way more people than normal showing up. And so I went, okay, thinking outside the box. Or not that far outside of the box. Actually, it's a stolen idea from friends of mine. Because Catholics from New York, Italian Catholics from New York, like Thanksgiving or Christmas, either one, there's a lasagna.
Right.
It just exists. Like, you can't not have it. It goes back to their mothers and the grandmothers and great grandmothers and on back down the line. It's not just ham and turkey.
Right.
You know,
which we settled into ham and turkey routine to the late 50s. Brenda brings up a great thing, a roast. Throw that sucker in that slow cooker the night before, let it cook it all up. Seafood, I love seafood, but you know, getting fresh seafood's been challenging. Yeah, so we're definitely, you know,
we'll still do things without fresh.
Yeah.
Now watch where you buy your seafood. Like, careful with that. We're too far from the coast to be buying it off a truck.
Exactly.
I don't want to hear any of y'all got sick because you bought seafood off a truck, because I just told you we're too far from the coast. You don't buy that off a truck.
Right.
And when I say off a truck, I mean some random. Like, if it's a Ford Ranger with an ice chest, walk away. That's not a thing here. That's a thing you can run into coastal, like Carolina, Virginia, whatever. You can do that. And you may be okay. But, you know, like, I would take the gamble there. West Virginia, no. No.
Right.
No. Don't do that.
Right. Well, you know, so be thinking, be stocking up a little bit, grab an extra can here, an extra can there. I have a lovely printable that I got from Mary's Nest's YouTube channel, and it's called Stocking Your Pantry $5 a Week. And we've been doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also maybe sit down and just have a conversation and go, you know what, this year's been screwed. Let's do something totally different. Let's, you know, again, you may find out your family members just go with it because this is tradition and this is what we do and this is how it's been. And maybe this is the year that you go, you know what? We're going to sit in our pajamas. We're going to eat candy. We're going to watch movies. And, you know, we're going to have Hot Pockets. If everyone's happy.
Right.
I mean, I just keep going back to this moment a friend of mine had a few years ago. Her son was turning 2. And like, her and her husband were kind of financially tight. Like, there was, you know, like a business thing. And she was so upset because, like, her son had been invited to all these other birthday parties and, you know, Chuck E. Cheese and renting out a bowling alley and da-da-da-da and da-da-da for 2-year-olds. For 2-year-olds. And I'm sitting here going, he's not going to remember it. Like, take $100, put it in a bank account for his college education, because there's no way between the two of you, your kid's dumb. Put $100 in a college education fund, buy him a cake from Walmart, and buy him a toy. He's 2. This is all he cares about. Like, he is not materialistic at 2. Like, chill out. You got a few years before it matters. Like, you'll be fine. Sometimes you just have to kind of take that moment and be like, you know, what's really going on here? Is it about me and what I think I need to do because this is what society tells me I need to do? Or am I actually doing a thing that's wanted, appreciated, and necessary? Sometimes you're not.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're
things because they've been done forever.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's kind of like the Brene Brown moment of, like, driving to the airport, finding out that, you know, she goes through all this effort to make these meals up for while she's traveling, just for her husband to be like, yeah, we don't eat that shit. You know.
There's Steve.
Like, that's cute.
Yeah. Because, you know, I'm the Brene. I sit there and plan out food and menus and have everything covered for when we're gone. And yeah, come back. There's no peanut butter. There's no bread. There's no, Insta pizza. But all the other food I created is still here.
And that's fine too.
Uh-huh.
Because sometimes I'm just like, I don't want that. Like, you're not here. I can have pasta.
Uh-huh. Well, you
Yeah,
still
it's like
now.
well, but you know what I mean? Like there was that one period where we like replaced everything with zucchini noodles, trying to help out with like your blood sugar issues. And I'm just like, he's not here. I can have pasta.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, it's cute that you made me a, no pasta, like what the fuck ever that was. That's cute. Why would I suffer through it when you're not here? Like, I only eat that because I'm being supportive and loving. But when you're not here, I don't have to be that supportive and that loving because you're not here to watch me put it in my mouth.
Well, you done that when we were in two houses too.
Exactly. Like
you got starved. I'm telling you.
No, I hate to tell you that there were times more than got out of the driveway before I called Domino's.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm just telling you now. There were times that you weren't even out of the driveway at least once before I had already called and placed an order.
Uh-huh. There was times though that I even questioned if you lived there during the week the 4 days I wasn't there. I really began questioning if you weren't there either.
I'm just saying I may or may not have planned my week around trash day.
Uh-huh.
Because everything would be out of the house by trash day.
Uh-huh.
And then you came down.
Uh-huh. Except the takeout boxes in the refrigerator.
Well, I'm not wasteful. Like, it was perfectly good food. Like, deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yes. Oh, hello, Ashley. And hi, Devon.
Yeah. Hello, guys. Oh, so in other news that we didn't get to Tuesday, lovely, we have a new Supreme Court justice.
We do.
It's like, really? They done it. They got it through in 30 days.
Yep. Down to the wire, and already creating some backlash.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least some new legal challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently lower courts are looking to make decisions to test how far right they can go now.
Right.
That's actually becoming an issue. There are some cases quickly bubbling up.
Right. And, I really am worried about this one.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's not a good situation to be in, but it's actually already started with Minnesota's election law trying to throw out mail-in ballots.
Mm-hmm.
At least those that are received after Election Day.
Right.
And challenging the constitutionality of whether or not those can still be counted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is only one. There's a suit in Pennsylvania. There's a suit in Florida. Let's just put it this way. They're doing everything they can to suppress the election.
Okay.
Because they already normally do that, but with mail-in ballots, they can't do it. Like, they move polling centers and shut down polling centers and try to, move them together and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, or basically, limit the number of locations in typically, Democratic-leaning neighborhoods, and then heavily increase the number of polling locations in typically Republican-leaning neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And we see a lot of that, and that has been a major issue. Atlanta specifically has had a lot of issues with that.
All right. Things that we have, however, seen, and I'm really pleased to see, is this may be a record election. More Americans may have voted this election than in the past century.
That is
Ashley, I
what.
can't say anything on the election, unfortunately. Not allowed.
Well, and yeah, this is a wild year for that, because ultimately what we're finding out and what's potentially brewing is that depending upon the votes that are counted on up and until and on election night,
Mm-hmm.
that may be the decider based on how the Supreme Court decides to rule, and
Mm-hmm.
that anything received after
Mm-hmm.
may not count.
Yeah. But
Like, it may literally come down to, once you adjust,
mm-hmm.
it could potentially drastically change that vote.
Right. Majorly change that vote, majorly change the way things happen. Um, but if the Democrats do win, I'm hoping that we do see an expansion of the Supreme Court. Um, but Ashley brings up a good question, because I don't think we've talked about this on the coffee shop in a long time, and I know we've never talked about it over here. There's certain things I can't do predictions on.
Right.
In certain even countries that I can't even do predictions on. And because we have international coverage, I have to kind of follow a lot of guidelines at the same time. Whereas, most of our listening base is in the United States, we have worldwide coverage. So this is why I don't make diagnoses medically. I am not supposed to take on legal stuff. I can't make any predictions about the Chinese government, the Iran government, or the Indian government. I can't talk about any election. When I say talk about make a prediction, like I see Kamala Harris as president in 5 years, that type of thing, I'm not legally allowed to do that. This is why we have to get birth dates from people. It's not because I use them for astrology or numerology or any of that. It's I'm having to deal with different guidelines.
Yeah. And part of it is, are you a legal adult for him to even talk to?
Yep.
Because, and we run into that at events.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Unfortunately, career wise, you, legally speaking, fall under entertainment.
Yeah.
And lumped together the same as, like, your church fundraiser fortune teller, or your school fundraiser fortune teller. And we have people that come up to events
Mm-hmm.
and kind of treat it like that, and they just kind of turn their kids loose.
Right.
And we're like, we need an adult over here.
Right.
Like, he can't legally read for this child. This is an 8-year-old one. I don't know what you think you're doing, or what benefit you think this is going to be. There's no real fixed reading for an 8-year-old. Their lives are in flux. Like, they are totally dependent upon the surroundings and lives of everyone around them.
Mm-hmm.
And what occurs in those. And that's not an appropriate conversation as well. I see you're going to have hard times because mommy's, going to lose her job. Like, that's not a conversation we're having with an 8-year-old.
At 8, there's a lot of opportunities there. And yes, technically, I could read for an 8-year-old about their life. Legally, I can't. Whereas, and it's because of who I am in my career, in my business, the clientele I have. I'm not seen as the, housewife that picked up a deck of tarot cards to do something fun at the circus. I'm actually held to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't do lottery numbers. It's Not my deal. I'll never predict lottery winnings. I am not I am not a random number generator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There is that. But no, it does get a little weird at events when we have to try to explain that, because there are a number of people that are just don't take it serious. Like, it's literally taken as like a sideshow.
Right.
And it's kind of a moment of, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then. This is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, because sometimes you do get people that are really, really like, I didn't know better.
Right.
But mostly what you get are people who are sitting there trying not to laugh because they're like, this is all a joke, and
Mm-hmm.
and those are some of the worst ones to deal with, because one, it's just disrespectful, and two, they're kind of teaching their kids to have that same disrespect. So it's like, okay, in 10, 15 years, I'm going to have to re-educate this child if they come back.
Right.
And more than likely, it's going to be multi-generational.
Right. And, we have that. We also have the venues that approach me like I am not a professional and come in way under budget. I'm like, and I hate to say this is going to sound so cocky, but I can't even roll out of bed for that amount of money, much less drive for 6-8 hours.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and then some of it is also when we get, like, it'll be respectful up until, like, like the venue and the location you're at, and it's like, okay, we're gonna put you between the caricaturist and the balloon animal guy.
I don't mind that. I would rather be there than beside the bathrooms and food table.
Well, there is that. But it's kind of that moment. It's like, all right.
I love working beside a caricaturist because he's quiet.
They always are. They usually don't say much.
No.
Like, they'll talk to you before the event. They're usually nervous as hell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what people do to caricaturists. Or like the ones that draw like the exaggerated, pictures. I don't know what people do to them, but I've never met a single one who isn't freaked the hell out before an event. And it's like, do you commonly get punched in your line of work? Is that what happens? Like, oh my God. These are some of the most scared people I've ever met.
Right.
And it's like, okay.
It's like I don't do stocks either. But read Ashley's comment.
All right. So Ashley says, I have a medium I work with sometimes, and she knew of my daughter's passing before I did. I've started having clairvoyant dreams since the winter of last year, and she wanted to tell me, and I asked she not, but I totally get where this stems from, like what's appropriate for you to speak on versus not.
Well, it's not appropriate. It actually runs into legal laws. It's like if I have a client that's in Britain, I have to record and maintain a copy of the video chat or call for up to 10 years.
Like, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's also the value of a network. And why for some of those clients it's just easier call me through the network.
Yeah, because
like that's where you're at.
It's handled. But even the networks really are starting to finally get that there are things we can't talk about.
And hello, Kathy. I don't know if I just said that a second ago. And Devin does have a question.
Awesome.
Sorry, we didn't skip you exactly. It was just there's we were trying to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and just backing up, apparently she did get her, or Devin got stuff out of the ex's house. New girlfriend was there. And it was kind of,
it was a shit show.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Be looking for contact. All right, let's go to our question.
All right. Devin 316 1978. I think my friend Chris is using again. Is he going to be okay?
Yeah, he'll be fine. Having a battle with his problems again, he will get through it. And I think he'll be coming out of this stronger this time. Be supportive. Don't be condemning. Look for him to have a little bit of a meltdown, breakdown towards everything, and be laying it out.
Okay. And then Ashley has a question.
Okay.
82696. I had a question about if you see labor coming soon. I've been having a sense it is, but I'm not sure.
Well, we do have a full moon coming. Yeah, I do feel like saying I would increase your water intake.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Devin's response on her friend is just trying to encourage him.
Yeah, and I think
And
that
I understand.
And listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So a story that's close to my jaded side.
Well, that could be one of a couple. Hold on. Which one?
Let's go with the cockle.
Oh, can we not? Not go with the story, but not call him that. Like,
oh, please. His father had so many widows eating cat food. And
fair enough. Fair enough. But yes, so Falwell Jr., back in the news again, has sued Liberty University for disparaging his reputation and basically ruining his career, alleging that they have effectively started making claims about him using unvalidated information, and that effectively can't prove a thing they said.
Well, actually, they can. A good bit of it. One of them being that, his wife's boyfriend, and possibly his boyfriend too, that's unclear about where that was at, got a complete gym paid for by Liberty University for nothing. Got a house on campus for nothing. Plus paid, they paid him for travel and reimbursed his travel, not Farwell Jr. No, the wife's boyfriend.
Well, this is the fun part of allegations, though. Is allegations are allegations, and allegations can be problematic, legally speaking. Is you can see it, you can know it, but sometimes it's how much can you prove? Or like any common person would look at this and go, yeah, something was going on. And I think everyone's there with the Falwell situation is like you're straining, credulity. Like you're straining there. Like you got to be bumbling through this one, dude. Trying to grasp at straws for things you can say that don't put you exactly where everyone thinks you were.
Right. And he was a viper.
Pardon?
His father was a viper. He stole the network from the Bakers. He had multiple long-term escorts. He shamed and destroyed the Bakers. He shamed and destroyed TBN. He, and he would go in and be a viper. He told the Bakers, give it to me for a month, get through this political storm, and repent, and we'll give it back to you.
And yeah.
Yeah, never happened. Liberty University was stolen again from another evangelist organization that he came in to save them.
Well, and then there are effective, allegations from Liberty itself that it was effectively a land management corporation that happened to teach classes.
Yeah.
That functionally, that's what it had become, is that it just owned a crap ton of property.
Right.
And just kept buying property. And, oh, yeah, we teach some classes too.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh, yeah, by the way.
Uh-huh.
But otherwise, that its biggest business interest was property.
Well, its biggest business interest was Social Security checks. Because I literally myself saw Jerry Falwell, his wife, Falwell Jr. continued this thing of evangelical speech that says, send us your retirement checks, send us your Social Security checks, and God will take care of you. God will do this. God will do that. So I'm sorry, Jerry Falwell Jr. is getting everything he deserves. He needs more.
Well,
and he got a handsome package when he stepped down as president of this fraudulent organization.
Oh, yeah. Because there had to be a golden parachute.
Oh, yeah.
But then there's also just, and it was another story in the news this week, and I did not save that one. I kind of wish at the moment I had, that got into the fact that, what happened, like, how did we end up with, like, public figures, political figures, suddenly becoming so shameless that these are supposed to be the leaders of our communities, of our institutions, and things that even hinted at, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that are, like, now coming out with, like, photos and videos and, recordings and, documentable proof. Less of these figures are actually, like, taking, like, one, even having remorse, doing anything but, blame the person that brings the allegations, or, turns their, following against them. Like, there's no, like, accountability there. And in terms of political figures, many of them are just being reelected.
Right.
Like, West Virginia, like, the best we've done in West Virginia was knock Porterfield out, and that was Mercer County, so not us technically, but Mercer County knocked out Eric Porterfield in the primary. Like, that was the best we could do. Meanwhile, we have another representative that has stepped down, despite being, in light of being busted in a prostitution sting, that is still on the ballot, and has said he will take office if he's voted.
No, and that's ridiculous. Granted, we are not sex shaming workers. We are shaming the Johns, because I'm sick of that.
Well, moreover, like, it's not that I'm about shaming sex workers or anyone who even engages, on either side of that.
Right.
It's more so, this isn't quite the behavior that you expect out of your elected officials. Like, I have more sympathy or more understanding, I guess you could say, towards, you're not living a political life. You're not my leader. You are a dude who drives a truck. You are, someone who, has a desk job. Live your life. You didn't ask for political spotlight, public scrutiny. You're not getting up in ads talking about, your great moral fiber and character. You're not putting yourself forward as this wonderful humanitarian who is just so great for the people of an area, or, such a wonderful example, a shining star of this institution. Like, you're not there for that.
Right.
But when you are, and you are engaging in these things, and it is already antithetical to your message, then yeah, I have major problems with that. You want to talk about being a good family man? Maybe don't cheat on someone.
Yeah. Or
like, just a theory.
My thing with it, and what gets me and aggravates me all the time with the whole situation, is we have those, Lindsey Graham being one of them, who pull all this bigoted stuff, putting down people, putting down everything else, being a total bigot, turning Fox News into a infomercial. And then he starts shaming people and making legal and law decisions that are discriminatory. No. Ain't got time for it.
No.
Don't vote.
And that's kind of, and that also gets into the outing concept of, that, like, within the LGBTQ umbrella, outing someone is typically considered, like, no, you don't do that. You don't know when someone struggle. You don't know the repercussions of this. You do not know, like, you're not going to be the one to be there when or if their life unravels. So outing someone, bad choice. However, when you're a politician building your career on, what the voters want, while also, like, you've got a foot in both worlds, also over here partying it up on the weekends with, rent boys or whatever, you're doing, that's a major conflict of interest. And that's the point in which I'm like, no, out.
Right.
Like, nope, sorry, you decided to live with a foot in both worlds. This is the point you get pushed in one direction or the other. You're going to either go way back in that closet or you're coming way out of it.
Right. And I think we as a country have got to start looking at our leaders. I mean, an example is Mitch McConnell. It's Mitch McConnell and Dinosaur or Us. Who, has massive bruising on him.
Well, again, more than likely a small medical thing of no consequence, but still won't engage on that. And to some degree, I think that's a moment of, that's a part of someone's life that I can understand having respect for privacy. Like, if he's going through a major medical condition, doing that in the spotlight of everyone else, I can understand not wanting to do that. That to some degree, his health is his health. Now, would I hope that if this is a major medical condition that is potentially, he's not going to survive another elected term, that he would have stepped down, stepped away, etc. Absolutely. I think that comes with it.
Right. And now it's blackmailing.
Well, and that's true. That can often turn it into a blackmailable item.
Well, no, I mean, blackmailing, going, oh, we're not going to get a stimulus package till Trump wins. I'm going to block every legislation coming out if Biden wins. That's blackmail. That should be, the Electoral College should sanction him immediately.
Well, or if nothing else, that should at least speak to his constituents about the game of dirty pool.
Right.
That if that this doesn't have anything to do with best interests.
No.
If nothing else, you know, at some point as a politician, you're going to have to suck it up and swallow. That not everything you want is something you're going to get, and you're elected to serve a much larger populace than just the people who send you checks. And that you do eventually have to make decisions that, while maybe not in support of your core normal, normal life beliefs, are what's best for a country.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's a nice, pretty picture world that you're trying to espouse beliefs in and political belief in. Smaller government and lower taxes and all these things. Now's not the time.
Right.
Like, you can't do that right now.
No.
I'm not even sure you should be doing it normally, but that's a differing political opinion. But how can you look at the United States today, right now, today, and go, no, we can wait on a stimulus check till after the first of the year. No, we don't have to really worry about, this COVID thing till after the first of the year. Like, no, sorry, get your butt back in there.
Yeah.
Get your butt back in there.
Yeah.
Like,
do what you need to do for the best of your country, what you were hired to do. And I'm sorry, Mitch McConnell needs to be pushed out quickly. Because he's not doing what's best for the country. He's doing what's best for his political career.
Okay. Oh, good deal. So, sorry, I'm seeing Kathy's comments come in. And Kathy, we are seeing them. Sorry if it feels like we're ignoring you. You kind of keep commenting while we're talking about other things.
Yeah.
So I keep trying to address and pay attention, and I don't always catch all those. But we are seeing your comments live. Just also note that you're getting a delay because of the video delay. So yes, we can, let's see. So, but she's coming from YouTube. Okay, yeah. So absolutely, Kathy, we'll try to make that happen.
Right.
But she does have a question. When you're ready for that one.
Okay. Definitely. Give me
So
a second to warm these up, but go ahead and go for Ashley.
Oh, for Ashley? It's been so annoying to keep on the politics of the stimulus and the COVID relief plans. It has. And it shouldn't be political. That's kind of where we're at, is like, this should not be a political issue. This is not about, Republicans and Democrats and, centrists and left-leaning and right-leaning and earmarks and, political ideologies of, taxes and all of it. None of that should be here. It's that we're a country in crisis.
Right.
That ultimately what happens right now could potentially have rippling effects for generations to come. And not just for, businesses, but for everyday people.
Right.
That ultimately you have people that are potentially losing not with only their jobs, but major assets in the course of this. That's a majority of the people in the U.S. are a $400 emergency away from that they can't afford,
right?
Or cannot afford a $400 emergency. We're so far into this, and with growing unemployment, you're potentially looking at people losing homes and cars and tapping into savings and maxing out credit cards and trashing their credit and being unable to pay their bills and ending up homeless, and like this snowballs.
Right.
And when you do that, that's not just affecting specifically the people involved at the moment. You're also potentially changing people's entire futures. That someone who, for instance, a child at this point, it's not just that child today is hungry and homeless and has no transportation and no longer has a school district, or there's ambiguity about what school district they're now part of. It's not just that. It's that, like if you're depleting that college account, if you're, that family may take, 5 years or more to get restabilized. You're that can totally change a child's future. It's not just the here and now and today, and which is bad enough. But as we let this linger, as we let this draw out, as we fail to act, you're making major radical impacts on entire communities, and not small ones. You're changing healthcare and what options people have, and people are putting off going to hospitals because they're afraid of compounding their issues. So what effect does that end up having? Yeah.
Well, what gets me even more so aggravated is other countries that are bigger than us, that have more problems than us, have this shit handled. Canada, within the first month of Corona, said, all right, everyone's staying home. We're sending you $2,000 a month check. We're passing it out through our tax plan that we already pay your retirement to. Sit there, behave, and clear up your shit. Let's get this under control. None of this political back and forth.
Exactly. Well, and Ashley goes on to say what's even more difficult is the media coverage not being consistent because it's so much coverage. That's also part of our media landscape, and it's the good and the bad. The good side of having a large media presence within any country is that less and less can escape the light of day. What can also happen is that more and more, you're trying to, stay on top. You're trying to get the, most viewers, the highest readership, the most number of clicks on a website. And so the way you present a story may sensationalize the content, may try to change the tone. The facts and just the facts, ma'am, mentality of journalism kind of died somewhere around 2000, because the publications that stuck with it died.
Right.
The publications that gave it up.
24 hours, 7 days a week, 365. With stories, with news stories, to keep the viewership up, to keep the commercials up. That's why I like British, the British news. I tend to go for the German news. And there's a lot of that just the fact stuff, but at the same time, it's equal coverage. And a lot of networks, Fox News for one of them, CNN for one of them, don't do equal coverage, even on important stories that aren't political based. There's not equal news. It's like right now, Philadelphia has had a shooting, is having riots. Neither of the two major networks have made much news of this. The stabbing in France, barely any coverage of what this is all about, because it's not American and it's not political. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We have a terrorist group going into a house of worship and almost decapitating 2 people and hunting a 3rd one.
Well, but again, as we kind of said, and this was kind of a pre-show comment, if you want to behind the scenes, is our lightest story for today was a magnitude 7 earthquake in Turkey and Greece. That is our lightest topic. Everything else is just bad.
Right.
And that's where we were in talking about like everything we were wanting to cover tonight is like the lightest piece
Mm-hmm.
is this.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, here we go. Welcome to 2020. Like, my God, this is a weird year.
Right.
But yeah.
But, and this is the key, and we'll jump into that one, and then I'll deal with taking questions.
Okay.
So give them the rundown.
Oh, which rundown? Sorry.
The church beheading in Nice.
So yeah, Nice is currently grieving and angry. So there was and it's being called an Islamist terrorist attack. A 21-year-old Tunisian arrived in the city the night before the attack, and basically there's still confusion, but ultimately went on to enter a church and wounded, I believe, just one who is in critical condition.
No,
One killed two. There were 2 women and a man attacked, so 3. Sorry. 2 died inside the church. One of them a 6-year-old woman. Yeah, there's a lot going on with this. And that was in response to a teacher that was beheaded in a Paris suburb after showing basically the Charlie Hebdo cartoons that, of course, involve the Prophet Muhammad that launched major backlash just a few years ago. Like, right. Is that still just a few? Like, was that a few years ago? Is that where we are now? It feels like 2020 is still long. It could have been last month. I don't know at this point. Welcome to the Blurth of Blurs Day on 2020.
Right. But anyway, the teacher was teaching about free speech, which is a principle of France. They have major free speech laws, but major responsibility for free speech laws. Which is very interesting if you look at their governmental system. But on to that, apparently he showed and this has been a major thing in France, was this magazine done some cartoonage with the Muhammad. We get political cartoons in every newspaper. And this is said, of course, this is an Islamic believing child that tells his parents. And this has set off a chain of events. First, we have the teacher attacked by a high school student and either maimed or killed. I don't know. I can't find a clear story on which. And now we have this terrorist attack going on. Now, France has one of the hardest gun laws. Like, it's hard to get a gun there in France. Has been for years. So instead of a shooting, now they're getting beheaded and some stabbings.
Right. Well, and I would technically say if it's a beheading, that typically that would eliminate life.
Yes.
Just as a, general idea, it kind of goes back to the joke of, the medical examiner on the stand with the attorney. Did you check the deceased pulse? Did you do this? Did you do that? And the medical examiner keeps saying no. And so the lawyer finally asks, so is it possible that, this person was actually deceased? And the medical examiner says, well, I'm pretty sure he was, because his brain was sitting in a jar on my desk, but I'm sure he could have been practicing law somewhere.
But that's funny. But it's like, come on. What are we, how much hate has got to go on for this stuff to go over? And furthermore, punishing a teacher, attacking a teacher, where's the ethnicity? Where's the
ethical, are you going with?
Yeah, ethical, religious view of this, because if you read the Quran, which if you haven't ever done, it's quite interesting. It has a lot of interesting viewpoints and stories. Education is one of the major principles.
Mm-hmm. Well, but unfortunately, where this is in a context. I was about to say a place, and I'm like, that's bad phrasing. Context of people who are extreme in their religious views and who are not open to any criticism of their, sacred religious figure. It's sort of like kind of in that Trump world where you keep trying to point out, that maybe in 2016, somewhere around the words, grab them by the pussy, we might have figured out that this wasn't going to go so well, and that maybe evangelical Christians were being used as a prop. Because that didn't seem very in line with their beliefs. But instead, it's that same kind of reaction of you don't criticize the Führer. Sorry. That's where I'm at with that.
But I finally got to the boat and pronounced it correctly. I'm happy.
Well, but ultimately, that's where this has ended up, is that even that no criticism allowed. No. You cannot criticize within any extremist belief. And that's typically your first warning sign. You're involved in some form of extremist belief. Is all criticism is silence.
Right.
And we've seen that throughout history. Like, this is what happens. This is fascism. That when you can no longer criticize, when you can no longer accept, when you can no longer allow for criticism,
right,
then you've entered fascism.
Right.
Like, that's your road path.
Right.
That, and authoritarianism. That's where you are. That's not me just making up words and throwing out ideas. That's how that works. That becomes a regime empowered that is literally not being held in check. Their power is unlimited. That, you wonder how a cult works. That's how a cult works.
A cult, not a cult. Let's make sure we make that distinction, because a few people have made that mistake in their English.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is not how the occult works. That's how a cult works. Yeah.
So, yeah, and so basically what I'm getting at is, you want to know how Waco happened. You want to know how Heaven's Gate happened. You want to know how, Jonestown happened. This is how it happened. You had a revered leader that, ultimately quashed all criticism, whose believers quashed all criticism, and they existed. And whatever they did, even counter to their own teachings, no one held them accountable. There wasn't that kind of I'm Newton bitten moment. Sorry, making a reference to Eddie Izzard there, and his thoughts on Lutheran or Luther, Martin Luther's notes on Christianity. There wasn't that I'm Newton bitten of wait a minute, what's going on here? This doesn't really work out.
Right.
That's a recipe for a disaster. That is a recipe for extremism, and that is a recipe for death, murder, and destruction. Right. Like, that's it.
Now, what I do want to bring up also is, in this news coverage, they're not taking on ISIS as a whole, or putting down Islam as a whole. Matter of
Mm-mm.
fact, the local Islam is protesting and doing, like, protect the churches and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, if you're not familiar with protect the churches, it's where the Islamic and Jewish people stand outside the church.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'd ever see that here in the U.S.
Actually, it has occurred. Izar, Islamic, oh gosh. I believe that's what it is. Anyway, technically there is a mosque in Princeton, West Virginia. They were the target of graffiti and threats a few years back. And actually there was a lot of community support against what happened.
Right.
That this shouldn't occur. And, there were volunteers that were like, we will help you get this cleaned up. We will help make sure that you can worship, peacefully without, being attacked, and help them through that situation and went, hey, we may not have the same beliefs, but you're entitled and have a right, and you should be able to worship however you choose, safely, freely.
Right. But I'm saying the reverse of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the mosques protecting St. Peter's Cathedral.
I think you could see that happening here. I think it could.
Yeah.
Well, because ultimately they're opposite parallels. If you go into a Muslim majority country and versus the U.S. and West Virginia, if you haven't noticed, is very Christian. Very Christian. And at least in terms of like number of churches, and like you don't have a lot outside of Christianity to go for. There's pockets. Pardon?
I think you do. I think that there's a lot of outside of standard Christianity in the state of West Virginia. It's just that we, have that belief of giving all to Caesar what is Caesar's and what is, our religion. And me and you recently had a conversation about someone saying, oh, I don't know a minister. And I just had to chuckle and go, no, you don't know a minister.
Well, it happens. Sometimes it just doesn't get brought up. But regardless, there is a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
But that it's still, if you're talking about out, so to speak, out of the religious closet, majority Christian in this area. So if you're looking at a Muslim majority country, and those and they are protecting a Christian church, it's kind of the flip opposite here. As you're looking at a Christian majority, at least in terms of those who are religious, Christian majority protecting a so to speak minor religion. I don't mean to diminutize the religion, but in terms of population and in number of people, it's a minority.
Right. But, we're also seeing through statistics that the Christian religion is one of the ones that is falling out of favor quickly.
It has. Actually, if you look at the survey results, atheism and agnosticism are growing greatly.
Yep.
The unchurched as a population are growing immensely.
Yep. The spiritual is growing even more immenser. Wicca is probably one of the religions that is growing. But do you think that's why St. Francis made his comment?
That's debatable. I don't think it is. I think honestly, I do believe the church tried for a little bit to remain relevant. Like they had their Sister Act moment, and I don't really think it panned out for them. Like I think it kind of like basically it's the same shit in, lipstick. Like it looks prettier, but ultimately you're selling the same thing. You just decided to, and kind of making a reference to another movie, took the Buddy Christ approach, and it really didn't,
Well, I think it didn't land well, for one, because they didn't give the full statement. You had to actually go and hunt. And I actually found that over in the German newspaper. The full statement was he was talking about civil unions as a legal precedent, because he also included for the brothers and sisters, which is how the religion in itself sees everybody. And he was talking about more so what civil unions provide, which was a legal context. It wasn't the blessing of the church. What I find interesting, and just interesting in general, is how much backlash he got. Like, that is very uncommon for a pope to receive.
That's very, very true. And I think that is unfortunately where we are at this point in time, is that it's sort of the moment I think religion is having to kind of, dance with the one that brung you. You spent a few decades, if not a few hundred years, sowing hatred. Now you're reaping it. Like, you got everyone on board with this. Like, you built the bus, you loaded everyone on it, and now you're stopping and going, well, I think this was a bad idea. Or even intimating that you might believe that perhaps there's something that needs to change. The biggest thing we know about religion, and especially the Catholic Church, is change is not really their forte.
It is, but it isn't. I think that what we're looking at right now, the Catholic Church as it is almost rectifying and being on a 1910, and I think it was Pope Gregory Fifth or Sixth or something like that, doctrine. And they're being constantly pointed out that everything that's in this doctrine isn't part of the original acts of faith. It was part of common day life there. And I think that that's going to be a massive, and I do mean massive, occurrence, and a massive change that we're going to see probably very much over the next 20 to 30 years in all of it. I mean, because for a pope to say even a hint of some of the things that Francis has said, he's had to see some very important documents that he isn't sharing yet.
Well, or at least understanding, and being more of a progressive pope. That's a very strong possibility. Because we have seen some of that over the last few decades. Come out of the church, is that there's kind of been a, let's pump the brakes here.
Right.
Like, I think if nothing else, that perhaps the church is having a moment of realization that we are causing harm.
Right.
Like, we're hurting people, and we're seriously hurting people. And we're becoming an instrument of hate, not an instrument of, peace, love, joy. We're not improving people's lives anymore. We are mostly functioning to destroy them.
Right.
And I think at this point, as much of an apologist as anyone could be, for the Catholic Church, would have to agree that a lot of what has happened, and especially in the last 50 to 70 years, has been the unfortunate marriage of politics and religion. And ultimately, I think there was this belief that you were going to, have a bigger influence on society. And I think there may have been a moment in which, churches and faiths thought that this would be a good way to spread their message and to make sure that their beliefs were respected.
Right.
I don't think they intended to necessarily get in bed with politicians and just effectively become, a bolster for political campaigns. And, they haven't actualized an increase in numbers. They're not really spreading their faith as much as, one might take away. They're really just being used to justify a hateful attitude.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry, there's nothing about, the Hobby Lobby case that is really about religious belief. It has way more to do with attacking individuals. Even in ways that the church generally has kind of been like, yeah, that's what we teach. We're not really going to get in the middle of that.
No.
On terms of, on birth control, for instance. That you don't bring it to our attention, we won't ask. No. It's kind of the churches don't ask, don't tell.
Right.
Like, just don't go there.
Right. All right. So let's take care of Kathy's question, then we'll round out the night.
All righty. So going backwards, 72862, and she actually wanted to change her question.
Okay.
Will my student loan be forgiven after my physician writes the letter to the company who holds my college loan?
Yes, but I feel like you're going to have to make sure it gets to a few different places, including the Board of Education that controls it. And the reason for that is we're pulling the Knight of Swords here, so it's kind of showing like you're going to have to make sure that it gets off, and handled correctly, with the Ace of Cups, which means communication gets opened up. So yeah, your student loans will get handled. Okay. All right. So I've been a little busy today.
You have been.
Yeah. Making some changes and making some measurements and everything like that. One of them being that we do have a new barista-only group. For our Patreons, we no longer are going to have the Discord server. Because nobody was using it. I think everyone is more Facebookers anyhow, so that if you are a Patreon member, please go to Patreon and see the new link to the group. That is also where we're going to be doing our private live streams for our Patreons only, i.e. Ask Us Anything. But we've also redone the tiers because it was time for an update. We hadn't changed them in a while. So why don't you hop in and talk about our tiers?
Alrighty. So currently, if you go to Patreon, you'll see there are 3 tiers of membership: Tall, Grande, and Vente. Tall memberships are $1 a month, Grande are $5, and Vente are $10. And each of those entitles you to an end-of-video thank you during credits, and we do our absolute best to make sure we do that. And all membership levels get you our Under the Table and Dreaming newsletter. Now, each level has a discount on a private reading with Aeson Knight, and that changes by membership level. That is 5% for a Tall. That is 10% for a Grande and 15% for Vente. So yeah. And then, of course, all, as we were just talking about, get you access to the private Facebook group. And then with your Grande membership, you will also receive early access to coffee chat videos and vlogs, a free meditative wallpaper for phone, tablet, and computer. And then for the Venti level, you will also get a free 3-card angel reading from Aeson Knight each month, which is a $10 value in and of itself.
Yeah.
So now, right now, the way we have the memberships, I do want to say one thing. The Venti membership is supposed to be the only level that has recognition in Under the Table and Dreaming. Right now, because we do, have a very small membership, I am actually recognizing everyone at every level.
Yes.
So, yeah. But in the future, so early adopters, you're getting a little special perk right now. Mm-hmm. You're being recognized in the newsletter. Mm-hmm. And that will change as that Venti level goes up.
Right.
Well, and as all membership goes up.
All memberships go up. But also, you'll notice some noticeable changes because I think originally only Venti had a discount. I expanded the discount a little ways differently. A lot of things haven't really changed with it. It's just we had to update it. And I wanted to change it and update it and start designing things for you guys. One of the things we're looking at is we get a lot of books in. We may be shipping those on to our Patreons. We are looking at merch ideas because I want a t-shirt that says my relationships aren't microwavable.
You do. You're way excited about that one.
Yeah.
And of course, like we keep hearing, and I know we were talking a little while back, we are still trying to work on coffee mugs. Bear with us.
Yes.
But that may be something once we get that designed, we might be able to just send that up.
Yeah. We might be able to send that up or send that out. Again, that stuff going to our patrons because we really do appreciate you guys. You guys are helping us a lot to produce more things, to handle more things, and to expand the shows. I am looking at doing a vlog every day in November. It's being called a Wedding November.
Well, it's being called a wedding.
Yeah, a wedding.
You gotta say it with a West Virginia accent on that one. It's a wedding.
Yep. And it's going to be an interesting challenge. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, what I'm covering yet, and it may just be coffee talks. So guys, be looking for Patreons. You're going to probably get those early, at least a few hours early, because it's kind of hard when it's a daily content thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, of course, we want to thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Kathy, Mary Winfield, Brenda Bryant, and the Crystal Lotus Shop at 89 Old Main Plaza in St. Albans, West Virginia, which actually you'll be at tomorrow.
I will be. Now, it is preferred to have appointments, but I will be taking walk-ins throughout the day. Please understand, we are following COVID standard precautions. So yes, even if I'm in a reading there, and that reading's a 15-minute for $20 reading, there's still a 15-minute downtime.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so if you want to learn more about the show or becoming a Patreon sponsor, please visit PCSPnetwork.com.
Yep. And remember, November's newsletter for Patreons will be out on the 5th, and public will be on the 10th.
Absolutely. And we're hoping to get the wallpapers out for the 1st.
Right. And we're going to start building those guidelines in. We're looking at probably, and the Patreons are going to vote on what day they want the sit down and ask Aeson and Joe anything day. All right, y'all. Well, hope you have a great evening. And
we look forward to seeing you, Shannon.
Yes. Have a great evening. We will see you back Tuesday here at the Psychic Coffee Shop, and we will be talking about who knows what. So until then, good night, y'all. Good night, Joe.
Good night.